Share our screen. Hello, everybody. Um, I don't know how to share my screen. Maybe I just shouldn't. Forget it. We're not going to share our screen. This is a podcast. It's audio. But I did want to mention that we've changed the name of the podcast. It's Comics Karma with Tom Hart and Lauren Weinstein. And you're here at the Sequential Artists Workshop. Lauren, thanks for the new name.
Hi, Tom. I just felt like it needed some kind of, I don't know. I didn't really know what karma meant when I proposed the name, and then I looked at the definition and I was like, yeah, not only does it sound good, but these sort of actions and decisions that we take that come back to us, both in practice and in sort of uh, in just how actions in the world that it seemed fitting.
Okay, awesome. So the our I want to ask how it's going. How is the project you're working on since last week? And are any other smaller things biting at your heels or I don't know. Just tell
Yeah.
us it's an update from last week.
Okay, so I am really, really trying to get this acid trip story done. I'm still working. I realized I had to, so there's a part of the story that involves me rowing crew. In high school, I rowed, and it was the most kind of spiritual thing. It prompted me, it was the thing that made me an artist, actually, was rowing
Wow.
crew because it constantly made me do things I never ever thought I could do. So while I'm talking to this guy on acid and he's like, what's going on? Where would you want to be right now? Because the drugs are just overwhelming my mind. I flash back into this crew situation and I'm like, you know what? This drug is just a sad imitation of what it is to be rowing on the water, where
Uh,
your mind is not your own. It's part of this group of eight people with a coxswain who is your brain telling you what to do. And so I've been trying to capture that experience all week long of rowing on the water. And it's very fun and difficult. Even just drawing people rowing is hard, foreshortening and all the references and the salt and pepper bridge, all these things. So that's been so much fun. But I realized I needed to, it's just 2 pages, but I needed to do a lot of research on that. So that's one thing that's been happening. And then the other thing is that I'm all dressed up today because I'm going to go to the premiere of this animation that I worked on. Um, Last year, I did a 3-minute movie and a 2-minute movie, and the 3-minute movie is going to be premiering at the Pano Short Film Festival at NYU Tisch tonight. And so I got a bunch of other things to do today, like
that's
go see a
awesome.
friend at an art. She wanted me to see her art show. So there's like a bunch of great things. Trying to get 2 hours more into this story, and but yeah. And then there's another thing, but I want to talk about it more with Sally because it totally feeds into that question that she had of like what, you want to work on stuff that's new and you want to work on stuff that's the longer project. Like, how do you balance it all? So I'll talk about that too.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. My the so we have this our community members ask questions in advance. So we sort of know what Sally's going to ask, I think. We'll see if she changes it up. But the relevant thing for me lately is I've been sort of like kind of cleaning out my art studio, which isn't a studio. It's more like just boxes all over the place in various buildings. But now I'm just focusing on the one nearest me, and I'm like, I've got so much junk. And I don't mean junk. I don't mean art supplies. I mean note cards, sketchbooks. And every note card I put away at one point thinking it was a brilliant idea for a story at some point. And I literally have like thousands of index cards kind of categorized. And I don't know what to do with them. And I have these
Ah,
books, what am I going to do with them? And like, I actually thought there's this new AI, I was like, why not embrace it? There's this new AI from Google. it's like a diary, and it sort of will summarize who you are and what you're doing as if you keep a good diary. And I can't do that, but I thought maybe I could just go through all this garbage and just sort of narrate. Like, here's a note card that says, "Man falls down in puddle and yells at God," and just throw it away. And just like every note card I find, list it, and then see what Google spits back out at me and tells me what I should, who I am.
I don't, man, it's hard for me to see that any of that stuff is junk though, Tom. I'm
It's
sure.
it's maybe not junk with a J, but it's in the way. It's in the
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
right?
right. It's
Um,
yeah. You know what Ivan Brunetti did with all of his old sketches is
yeah.
he took a paper cutter and he made them all into the same exact size, and and it was the size of a little gift box, and he would just send little stacks of his of that kind of thing to other people.
God, I would need like 60,000 friends to do that. And who would want my junk? All right, I don't know. Well, okay, let's bring our guest on. I'm gonna ask Sally. I'm actually gonna make Sally a co also. I'm gonna ask them to unmute and um add spotlight. So Sally, we brought you on because you gave us a good question in our initial questionnaire. So why don't you let us know what it is?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm working on this longer project that's about my parrot Dodger and our how he changed our lives and the whole pet thing, kind of, and life and death and all that. And and then I keep having these, like, I have so many ideas. I'll be like Tom. Oh, I'll be like Tom pretty soon, with all these things. I've got notebooks, different notebooks that like I've got a one that I journal in and draw in all the time, and then all these different places that I put things, and I just don't know how to honor and keep moving forward on the big project, and then not feel like I'm letting a lot of things that matter to me, especially like in the current climate. There are things I feel like I really need to say, and I want to be out there and give people images that they can hold on to, and maybe inspire people to think about doing things. And it all feels like a lot right now, especially, I think. So balancing, as Tom said, how to think about that is my question.
Did I say that? So Lauren,
I I feel like that is like the biggest question of my entire life. I mean, it's taken me like 20-ish years to write this book that I'm working on right now. And at the same time, I always get pulled in by these amazing projects that it's taken me a very long time to understand that these projects are not just like a waste of time, that each one actually feeds into the longer project. Um, and But I've made a handy dandy list for myself when I'm approached by a new project, and we can post this on the chat. Like I have some criteria that I think is very important. And here's what it is. Is it interesting work? Like that's the number one thing. Like if and I'd love to hear from you guys and you, Sally, like what it is that's the most interesting, for like what you would consider interesting work. And for me, it means, will I learn something new? And is it related to things that I most want to do?
Mm-hmm.
That I think I've stumbled so many times when somebody's like, yeah, I've got this project about, you know, but like big posters that are going to go somewhere. And that sounds really cool. But then as soon as I think about working, like that scale change is going to totally mess me up. But then, all right, so, okay. Uh, how much time will it take? Like, and be honest with yourself, that which is something I always like to lie to myself about these things. Um, and then who will see it? Like who's going to actually see it? And then how much does it pay? That's a, and how much will it take away from my big project? So I think those are my criteria. I might even come up with more, and maybe you guys have more too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sally? What do you think about that list? Like,
That's very professional. I love it, you know. It's like I was just thinking that one of the things maybe I could do to challenge myself is when I do have an idea, try to approach it in a different way than I would normally. Like, okay, if I'm doing single panels, try to do 4 panels or try to put some perspective, you know, like I'm still learning a lot, I think. So
mhm.
maybe running it through, you know, some other filter to make it a learning process for myself, as well as whatever it is that caught my eye that I want to say something about. Usually my stuff is kind of anecdotal, you know, these little
Mhm.
things about life that just charm me, or make me mad sometimes. So yeah, and I don't know, this is kind of a little off, but one of the things that Emil Wilson said in one of the Sunday Open Studios once was that he tries to, rather than, like, if you see um, I've got the calls for submissions from Riff Raff and the Gutter. And instead of trying to create something for it, just look through and see if you've got something that you can shift. And so I've done that this week with a couple of them that I think I'm going to submit. And then so I'm putting it through a different filter. You know, it was kind of this thing that I wrote that didn't have a shape, and now it's like, now I can go back and shape it a little bit more to fit the waiting theme, because
Yeah.
it's about having my mom in hospice, and so waiting is part of it, but bringing that to the forefront, so it's something like, if it doesn't go anywhere, I'm still going to learn something. So that feels like a worthwhile thing when I have sort of a way to go. But if I hadn't done that just randomly when it came up, I wouldn't have it to go back to. So I'm like, I
Absolutely.
think I need to get it down on, it's very, very rough the way I had it, really, really rough and out of order, but it's there. So
I think there are a couple of things worth noting there, and one is that like we all know deadlines are really good, and they're really good for finishing things, and finishing things feels really good in the past. Like when you look back and you're like, oh, I
yeah,
finished that, like that feels really good. So deadlines are great, but then there's also like um, the the structure that you're being given about make it this way, make the project change the project enough so it's in the focus of the theme. It's you've already got it started, but it's giving you this parameter. A deadline is a kind of parameter, but you're getting this other kind of parameter. And that's great.
yeah,
When you can get those two things in one, it's usually a pretty good thing, I think.
Yeah, and
yeah.
sometimes things just need kind of an incubation period too. Like
Mm,
do something and it doesn't go anywhere, but there's some good germ of an idea there that if you
yeah,
hadn't just scribbled it down in the first place, and I think especially with anecdotal stuff, like you've got this
right,
germ of a story. It's a really good story, and the way it's told is lacking in some way.
right,
But
yeah,
if you're given 4 panels to just kind of like structure it, then suddenly it works. I do that all the time. Like I'll have kind of an idea and I'll write it down and I'll even like post it in my, like so
oh,
I can kind of like stare at it. And a lot of times I will wait or I'll submit it somewhere and wait for the rejection. And but even in that time, I can think about, you know, revising it or something like, like so I think that having some kind of understanding that the process is going to be kind of fluid, but if you didn't write those ideas down in the first place, you'd be nowhere.
right,
But
yeah,
then the other thing is keeping up with your book or your longer
yeah,
project. And
yeah.
so what do you how do you what are the what are you coming up against with that? Like how do you drift?
Yeah, I've been doing this gentle drawing habit. thing where you just kind of try to make yourself draw every day. And I've ended up making it like, I really like it. It's a meditation, and that is kind of drawing some of my energy in a way that it was really meant to make me draw faster. And I need to get back to that, I think, because so the way I drift is that I have every other week I meet with a small group, and so I have deadlines, and I get that work done that day or the day before I start working on the bigger project again. And it's, thank goodness that it's there, but I really need to step that up. And I'm thinking about using Sunday Open Studios. We have now a place where we can post our progress, and I don't want to put this stuff out. It's just like blue pencil, it's on Procreate, but it's blue line stuff that's very rough and like figuring out the story, like my version of thumbnails, which is, yeah, a little more complicated. But so I'm thinking maybe posting there every week, where it's just a small group of people again, and not, I don't want to put it out to everybody, the longer story. So that's my current plan.
Yeah, I mean, that accountability is like a really smart idea, because often you don't want to do it and it just forces you to kind of like put something together to get out there. And that's
Yeah,
the thing with comics too, is like a lot of times you could be working on a little part of something, like getting really into the drawing, but it's just, how do people get to the end of that next page and the next page? And once you can show it to other people and you can get some feedback, you
yeah,
it's like you don't sweat the small stuff as much.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of at the plot and pacing kind of stage right now. So I want to get out of
Yeah, yeah.
that.
I think sometimes printing it all out too,
Oh
and just
yeah,
putting it in a grid so that you can really stare at it. So you
yeah,
say, okay, here's where I need to devote my drawing, and here's where I can maybe, like this is an establishing shot. I need to put my time into this page right now,
yeah,
that kind of thing. That could really be helpful.
yeah,
Because I think anytime you're getting kind of stuck, and I don't really hear that you're getting stuck, you just have too many things.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, so going back to that question you had in the beginning too, of what, especially with right now, you want to put stuff out there. w- What what are those kind of shiny objects that you're like, I gotta write about this one thing? Are there,
Well, you mean other than well, yeah, a lot of
yeah,
stuff,
like the distracting kind
the
of
distracting
yeah.
things. I guess the more sort of serious stuff, the longer project is, like, it's about my bird, who's fantastic and makes me laugh a lot. And that's really sustaining to spend time with that. But also, like, I have had a lot of personal loss, like in the last year or so. Well, actually 4 years. My mom died in 2020, and then my sister died like a year ago today, something like that.
Oh,
Or no, April. It's April 5th. April 5th. Sorry. So it's all very, like that stuff's calling to me, because, it's like when you really let yourself get into that, you can get some kind of rich things. But I feel like I don't know.
is it? Uh,
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, this isn't for everybody, but usually when I hear two big ideas, and loss of that magnitude is a big idea.
Yeah.
It sounds like the project about Dodgers is a big idea. When I hear two big ideas, I always ask, are they the same idea? Like,
Yeah, me too. I was gonna
Um,
ask the same question. Is there some way, by working on,
wow.
talking about loss, like just working on that in your sketchbook, somehow it connects?
Yeah. Yeah, it does, because one of the reasons I got this bird that's going to live 40 to 60 years 32 years ago is that we didn't want to, like, we were tired of having animals die, and our first bird was actually like terminal. He had cancer. He had tumors at the time that we bought Dodger. So he's known all of the other little birds that we've had all this time. So he's like this sort of connective tissue, and my perspective about that has changed some. And I weirdly realized that I got Dodger the same year of my life that my mom had me. So it's like
Oh,
weird. I know it's not was not conscious at the time. I didn't realize that till this year. So I don't know. I don't have children, so
all of this is linked, right? I mean,
well,
I'm not trying to
Seems
change the direction of your book at all.
yeah,
It sounds like those two types of stories are meditations in the same on the same road.
yeah.
I
Well, so
would give
maybe they
that
can
some,
feed each other even if they don't
Yeah.
braid entirely. Or maybe they do. Oh, that's scary.
absolutely. I think
Yeah. Oh,
uh you can I would give yourself some time without, it sounds like you come up with ideas in such a organic way anyway.
mm,
Do that with all the stuff about loss. Like give yourself, like 30 minutes or something. Just, set a timer and just sit there
yeah,
and think about it and then close up that book, let it go and then see where it takes you,
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I do think that the gestation period for some of this stuff is important too. I see it over and over again. Like, I need to go into this one part a little bit more. I need more space for that part.
Mm,
And so, um, by writing it down, you'll be able to glean something from it.
yeah, yeah. That's really good. And maybe continuing my little silly, like what I end up doing in my daily little drawings is like making inanimate objects around me talk and things like that. Like they have comments about about things. So then I can still be lighthearted
Yeah,
or
exactly.
have, little angry pencils talking about things. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you warm up like that at all, Lauren? Do you warm up with like silly drawing or anything like that, or do you?
Yeah, I do. But often I have to watch myself with these warm-ups because
Right.
sometimes that's like the whole day is the warm-up.
Yes. Yeah.
But then sometimes that's actually what I needed to do. Like sometimes doing a mock-up or like a layout is like pulling teeth for me of my book. Like it's like sludge. I'm like walking through the sludge and just recently, wait, maybe I'm going to show you guys on this. I know it's a podcast, but
Yeah.
uh,
Okay. For those not with visual adaptations at the moment, Lauren has disappeared. She's
Yeah.
reappearing, and we will
It's magic.
describe what she is showing, which is
Wow.
a bunch of tape on a piece of paper.
yeah, so I realized that I could cut things out,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and I guess this is on portrait mode, so it's all like uh blurry anyway, but it's taping it up. Like this actually really freed me. Uh, like I could just do a lot of different little, and then I was like, wow, this is a really nice drawing too. Like, okay. Um, but
Is it
uh,
basically you don't have to get it right the first time? You can,
yeah,
is it
you
like
don't have to
that?
get it right the first time,
Yeah.
and I wanted to give myself as much freedom as possible in this stage because the next stage is going to be tracing it onto like really nice watercolor paper and then going in with that part. And so this was hard, and I just messed around a lot doing some other drawings and uh but then I found that once I could cut the paper, I was much happier. So um so I think knowing that these things kind of like and now actually I think that it would take me about 2 hours to pencil 2 pages because I've gotten all the basic compositional stuff down onto the um onto the watercolor paper. So like I think sometimes you just gotta kind of work with, yeah. It sounds also like you're concerned about being light and then you've got this heaviness and so but you can be
Mm,
both. You really
mm,
can.
yeah.
And in
Yeah.
fact, they feed into each other a lot. Like I feel like if something's just sad, it's not, you can make something more sad if it's funny.
Yeah, that's funny. We just watched the Chuckles the Clown episode of Mary Tyler Moore last night. Do you know that
Uh-huh.
one? Where she's like laughing uncontrollably in a funeral. And you know, it's like it's funny that yeah.
You know, Lauren, I told a friend just yesterday, like I'm always stuck, right? So just assume that. So, but I told him that the reason I was stuck at the moment is like I one part of me wants to take this project I'm working on to make it Shakespeare, and the other part wants to take it and make it Popeye. And I
Yeah.
just can't figure out how to do both or to get it in the middle or something like that. So I just sit there not going forward. It's a real drag. But at the moment, I don't have those deadlines and that accountability that you guys talked about a little earlier. And Lauren,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you said you have this writers group that you show stuff to like every week.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
are they expecting a certain number of like either pages or something like that from you?
Actually, somebody different goes every week. So I
Uh-huh.
don't, I go maybe once a month, except like recently I went twice in a month because I had these two different projects and one, it was so nice of them. Like there was a quick turnaround deadline. So I wanted to show them like the night before I submitted it. So that was really, really helpful. Um, but like I try and get full stories that aren't quite done yet to my writers group so that they can really give me like
Mm,
revision.
mm,
Um, so it's really helpful for me to get a full layout to them with all the dialogue kind of in where I think it's going to be so that they can say, oh yeah, I want to know more about this part of the story. That's really, really helpful for me. Like I I here's a connection that you're making that I might not even be aware of. Like those are the things that I think happen when you really start to do a good layout. And it's not really as helpful when I show them the final stuff. So the final stuff goes out
uh,
to like an editor, that
right.
they're really good on the ground floor. Um,
Do you have to sign up with your writers group? Do you say like I want April 3rd or whatever and tell them you're that's your day and you're going to show up with X number of pages? I'm asking because I want to know if like if there's this chance you might fail. You know, this chance you might not show up with something, and does that motivate you?
um, the leader of my group, I'm going to share this podcast with him, is he's fantastic at knowing what everybody needs.
Mm,
Oh. Mhm.
So he's different for different people. But I went into the writers group being like, I want to finish my book. And he's very wary. Every time I take on a side project, he's like, He can be kind of harsh about that. But he also knows that they're important, these projects, like some of them. Um, and so other people he might be like, yeah, just get it out, this next big idea you have, get it out there. Um, but and we all, it's not just him that's leading, like we all definitely like feed into it in different ways. But we're actually pretty flexible about who goes when. It's mostly when somebody like needs to go. Um, and and I think that's good because nobody fails.
mm,
Like there's pressure, but nobody fails. Um, One day, I think it was like something really bad nationally happened.
mm.
And I was like, I don't know if I can.
One day.
That one day, that one
Yeah. I just don't know. No, I think it was when Trump was elected, honestly. Like it was that day. Like it was, I don't know, sometime around that. I was like, I just don't know if I can even deliver. And you know what the my fearless leader said was like, you know what? Everybody's having like a really bad time right now. You gotta show your work so we can take half an hour off or an hour off to like look at art. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? You're right. And that like pushed me to my deadline. I showed a lot of stuff that wasn't quite done, and it really helped me get the story done that
Mm.
wouldn't have been done otherwise. So that's really, really important.
Lauren, what was the term you used? So going back to crew and rowing, you used
Mhm.
a term for the single person who's in charge. Who's that?
Oh, the coxswain.
Coxswain.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
spelled Coxswain.
Coxswain. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like would you recommend that kind of like we all sort of need a coxswain in some way, like a sort of
Hmm.
super ego saying, no, Lauren, don't take that side project. Yes, Lauren, just stay with the rhythm of the other seven rowers. Just keep rowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah,
outsourcing that can really work, right? Say like it's just got to be somebody
Absolutely.
you trust.
I
Right.
think the best Friday night comics things are like that. You know, when you have somebody that will say, we're going to spend 4 minutes on this and 4 minutes on that. You know, when we go through it like that, you just loosen up. You're like, okay, somebody's going to make me move to the next panel in a minute and I don't have to worry about it. I think it kind of, that's my favorite.
Yeah, right. And you can do so much in 4 minutes too.
Yeah.
You know, I have a timer, like an egg timer that I
Mhm.
set sometimes for like a 20-minute chunk of time, and I
Yeah.
put my phone far away. Like I just there. But that's more about distraction. I have to say, like, there's another project, and sometimes I almost feel like I talk about them like adultery or something, like I'm cheating on my
Yeah.
big project, like, but there's another project that I'm gonna find out tomorrow if it gets the green light. And it's a
Oh,
big one, and it's one I can't talk about it. Uh, but it's the lots of people will see it, check that box off.
no.
Interesting work, like double check that box off. How much time will it take? It'll take some time, but not probably a crazy amount of time. I'm not sure about that yet. Anyway, so actually knowing that I'm probably going to get some information about that tomorrow is making me really push forward on my book as well. Like it's like
Mm.
I know that I don't want to lose momentum on this chapter, especially since it's all watercolored. Like it's really, really important that it looks the same, that I'm in kind of the same mindset. So sometimes having another thing that may or may not happen actually pushes you to do the main thing too.
Lauren, did you ever get something with such a ridiculously short deadline that you just like you can't believe you did it and it turned out super well? And reason I'm asking, I'll share my example while you think of yours, is that I co-edited this book, the Field Guide to Graphic Literature.
Hmm.
We were like 2 weeks from publication, and they said, "Oh yeah, remember when you promised to make a comic preface?" I was like, "Oh shit, are you kidding me?" And I looked in the old emails, and so, oh my God. And it was so the time period, it was like a 3 day turnaround or something. And I said, all right, well, I guess I'll teach myself Procreate. And guess what? That didn't work. So I spent like an evening, I wasted an evening trying to figure out Procreate. And then instead, I just like, all I did is I just watercolored a bunch of splotches and scanned them and just wrote something down really quickly. And I just made all those splotches. Oh, and then I went to the New York Public Library Image Bank and I downloaded some images and I made all that work in a 2 page comic. And I
Wow.
in like 2 days, and I still look at it. It's like one of my favorite things I ever did. And sometimes I'm like, why can't I make comics like this again?
I know. Well, that happened to me a bunch of times with my Village Voice comic. Like
Oh,
I like my one of my favorite comics I've ever done is the zombie Pilates comic where like two zombies are like um eating human flesh and they're like, God, I'm so stressed out. I gotta stop stress eating. And then they do like Pilates together and they're like, this did not work. And then they're like, give yourself a break. Like the time is hard right now. And they go back to eating like eyeballs and stuff. And uh and and I feel like I never would have got that done without a deadline. Like I was looking at some
right.
horror comics at the time. It was all sort of
Oh,
aimed at the style of
so
horror.
it was that the idea, you probably wouldn't have honored the idea, except that under that deadline, that's what you had.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Oh,
like zombies. And then I was like all these things kind of had to come together. It was Halloween. it was like that time presented itself, and there it was.
I did daily strips for like 2 or 3 years or something, and I got kind of okay at writing this sort of standard 4 panel gag. But every once in a while, I just couldn't figure out a gag. And like I would just end it in some weird way. And by and large, those are my favorite strips. I look at them now and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, I've been writing that way the whole time. And anyway, the point being is that like to me anyway, sometimes those deadlines just get the best work out of you.
Absolutely. I think probably most of the time. I mean, I
Mm.
don't know. With my weekly strip, one of the things I found was that I was working too fast some of the times. And I also felt, and maybe this is important for now too, I felt like I had to be a little bit political. Like it was during Trump's first
Oh,
time round. And I felt like, and now I look back on all those political comics and I just want to toss them. Like they just don't feel relevant.
Mm.
Maybe that's okay too, because certain things sort of hit at a certain time. But the ones that are the weird ones, like the zombie one, those are the ones that feel timeless.
Forever.
every once in a while, if I see a comic of that somebody did of something I thought that I like, oh, I should do a comic about that, and then I see somebody else has, I'm like, oh, thank God somebody else did that
Right.
comic. I don't have to.
Totally. Yeah.
And I can pay attention to the things that really matter, which are somewhere in there.
I definitely think that like I went to a community organizing event the other night and I was like, I'm just here to maybe like I want to work with my strength here and not, I'm here to maybe make a comic about something you guys do. And so this woman was like, well, you should make a comic about that paralysis that you feel, and that makes you not act, this feeling of hopelessness. And I was like, this is a beautiful idea. Then a psychologist was like, I have so much information about this. So I got her number. And so like that's something I'm cooking on right now. It's not going to happen immediately, but I think that that's like a really special idea. But it's also one that maybe somebody else has that idea and does better comic. Like,
Sally,
and
oh, go ahead.
that's actually a good example of something that sounds good on paper. It's like good Wheaties or something, but but maybe it's not exactly that kind of free associative art stuff too. That's like those are things that's kind of an issue that I have sometimes with work too.
What if it's too didactic or something?
Yeah, yeah.
And you're not very good at that, or you don't feel like that's your strength. That's what you
Yeah,
mean.
it's not as fun.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
great. So, Sally, is this helping?
Yes, yeah, I think I made a few connections here and also thinking about going to some of I kind of was in prose, trying to write literary things for a long time. And I have some friends that I think, yeah, I should send them my
Mm.
story things before they're settled because they'll have good story ideas. So that's kind of fun to think about tapping into them again in a different way, not giving them stuff I think is finished that they don't get because they don't read comics. It's like get them at the story point. Plus, yeah, it's really helpful to make some connections about everything being kind of about
Maybe part of the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, very
And
helpful.
I think, and I'm seeing it in the chat a little bit too. I think one of the big takeaways is like accountability. Have somebody who can
Yeah,
can tell you. It depends on like what level do you want to outsource? Like, do you want to say, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, or
right.
or just give me a nudge if I'm doing something wrong, or anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever level of gentleness you need. But it sounds like that's a good idea too. Is like have somebody definitive that you can say, you're my you're my accountability, not just partner, but like I don't know, Coxswain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
Okay, all
Excellent.
right.
And I also think maybe that person shouldn't be like you kind of want to have almost a professional relationship with them. Like they're not going to be like that person could not be my husband. I love him dearly, but that's not,
Right.
it's like somebody, yeah, that you're not this sort of profession, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
little
It's not that you
distance.
don't have a whole other emotional life with, that you're counting on them and they're counting on you. So you don't have, because that adds a lot of weight to what they say that isn't necessarily helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Sally, I'm gonna send you back into the rest of the feed. Thank you for
Okay,
asking that
great.
question and giving us a chance to
Thank
rant.
you
Then
so much for
sure.
having me on. It was really fun and I really appreciate the time, and it's just fantastic. Thank you. This is going to be a great podcast, the whole
Thank
series,
you,
I'm sure.
Sally.
So,
Thanks. Okay. I'm gonna go to Lauren. Lauren, what if like this is me just riffing and rambling, but what
Mhm.
if like you become too emotionally attached to your coxswain? Like,
Mm.
what if you really want to impress them because you're kind of like half in love with them or something? And I'm not saying that would happen with me, but it would happen with me if I
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh God, that's like the greatest episode. Like desire is inherent in all of this stuff, and art crushes, and I think I think art crushes are so important. Like people should nurture them and 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 have them and also have boundaries. Uh, but I think if there's somebody that you want to impress, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's really good. Like if there's somebody that's sort of like I really like the fact that my the guy that runs my writers group is slightly intimidating.
Hmm.
I think that that's good for me. It's not
Hmm.
wouldn't be good for everybody, but I like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right. I didn't mean to derail it, but that went in a good place.
No,
Uh,
the art crushes are so awesome. Oh my God.
all right, we'll definitely do that for an episode. Lauren, anything we need to say as we wrap up, but or are we good? I want you to get some work done at your project and make it to your event tonight. So
Yeah, I know. I got some stuff to do. Um, just like it's so much fun to do this. Thanks for asking me to do this. And I love hearing from everybody and about their work, and Sally, I can't wait to see your work as well. I want to hear about your parrot and your loss and how they're connected and laugh.
yeah. And next week we have Lynn Bernstein. So Lynn, get your question ready, even though you already asked it and it's a good one. But so we'll be in touch about that, and I'll forward that to Lauren a day in advance. And so yeah, it's gonna be juicy next week.
Excellent.
All right, Lauren, thanks so much. Go get some work done. Everybody else, go find somebody to be your coxswain or part of your rowing team. Find more people to row with you, right? And that's a good thing too. I love this metaphor. I don't know if that was the intention, was to send us off with that metaphor, but I really like it. I'm gonna think about
Yeah, me too. It was totally not the intention. I
it. All right. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you, everybody. Have a good time. We'll see you here on the internet next time. Bye. Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of the Sequential Artists Workshop, or SAW. You can find us on social media at Comics Workshop and online at sawcomics.org. You can hear about our many courses at learn.sawcomics.org. SAW is a nonprofit and supported by people like you. Learn how to make a tax-deductible donation at the donate page of sawcomics.org. You can join our free community of comics explorers at members.sawcomics.org. Thanks so much for being here.